All right, Dr. Jeff from Rythmia, beautiful Costa Rica. Tonight's topic is Show Me Who I've Become. So this is our first intention that we teach to the guests. We have three, and the three are Show Me Who I've Become, Reunite Me with My Soul, and Heal My Heart. And that is what creates the miracle that we talk about at Rythmia. So Show Me Who I've Become is like a really big deal because in life, we believe that everybody splits at some point from their authentic self and then their spiritual or emotional self. There's this split that occurs because of trauma or abuse or neglect or abandonment or a scary moment or all kinds of whatever stuff that goes down in life. We believe that you come into the world plugged in to who you are and then you split. And that's a part of life. That's what life's about. And the goal is to get back to who you really are. And so Show Me Who I've Become is the first step in seeing what split has occurred, when and where, and then what you're showing to the world to survive. So in psychology and in other sort of disciplines, we talk about the ego. And the ego is something that is developed over time to safeguard you, protect you from vulnerability, because vulnerability is weakness in the world, not in our opinion, but in the world it is, especially if you're being traumatized, it can be in those scary moments, especially when you're a kid. So Show Me Who I've Become means, what have you created to show the world who that you want them to see, right? What is this about? And for some people, it's becoming, this super successful business person, or it's about becoming a drug addict, or it's about becoming a funny kind of jokester person, life of the party. Some people, it's being quiet and detached from everybody and shy. There's all these different scenarios, all these personality types, right? And so Show Me Who I've Become lets you see during the plant medicine sessions that what you're showing the world isn't really the authentic you. It's something that you've created to survive and get through life. So if I'm an attorney working in Wall Street doing tax law, what I need to show the world to survive is I'm a ruthless gangster, and I'm somebody who can handle any kind of brutal stress. I can survive in Manhattan, New York. I can get through. Nobody's going to mess with me. I'm going to be this like hardcore type A person. And you know what? It has benefits to it. You become successful, you gain money, you gain power, all this kind of stuff. Society reinforces it. But really, when you're alone, you're by yourself, you're about to fall asleep, and you have these quiet moments, which aren't often if you live in Manhattan, New York, you feel confused and you don't feel that that's really who you are, and you feel lost. And then what happens is you try to numb that out because there's a conflict between who you really deeply are as a person and what you're showing the world. So this conflict causes a reaching out for tools and for things that will try to like numb you. So that's usually for attorneys, that's alcohol. 65% of attorneys have an alcohol abuse issue. It makes sense because what they're dealing with in their job is they're showing all this kind of like hardcore facade that gains them success in the courtroom or at the litigation desk. And so, but the bottom line is it's not really who they are as people. They could be very sensitive, could be very emotionally aware. They could be, they could love animals. There's a list of things that they really are, and what they're showing the world is not who they are. But what happens in life, especially, if this split happens when you're a kid, now you're 50, now you're 40, now you're 30, whatever age you are, 60, 70, is that it's not serving you anymore. And you realize that you're not happy. And you really don't know who you are as a person. And you think that, your career defines you, or these interactions with others define you, and then you get reinforcement from all these people around you who say, yeah, you're a strong person, you're doing the right thing, you're very successful and all this stuff. But at the core, it doesn't really connect with you. You don't really understand it, and you don't feel that that's authentic. You think they might be lying, and you don't believe that what they're saying. And so there becomes this like bridge between who you really have become and who you really are as a person. And what we do at Rythmia is we try to get you back plugged into who you really are. And so what that means is what we call an ego death. And ego death sounds scary, okay, but it's not. It's something that just shows you all these things you've portrayed to the world in order to sort of safeguard your inner self, really your inner child. And if you think about what does it mean, like inner child, right? Because in psychology, we talk about inner child work. And inner child is really basically just who you really are before you unplugged from yourself. And it's the authentic you. And so what that means is that if your inner child is in conflict with what you've created to show the world, then you're going to be in discord with yourself. You're going to be in conflict and contrast. And so at Rythmia, we try to get you back to who you are and sort of push away these coping sort of styles that you've shown the world and get you to be authentic and get you to be who you really are. Because what we believe, we've seen it with almost 6,000 guests, is that when they are really who they are, then they are happier and they're actually more successful and they're more driven, and they can be sharper and more clear about how they communicate. And people feel the authenticity. You ever talk to somebody who you're just like, man, that dude's fake. Like, I don't know what's going on with this guy. Like he has this sort of like script that he always says, and it's not real. I just don't feel a connection. Well, that's the fake self or the ego that is communicating in that moment. And it's not real. It's a facade, really is what it is. And I'm not knocking it because we all have one. And we use it in a way that we believe protects us and serves us. So for example, if I was abused as a kid, which I wasn't, but if I was, I would build up this like defense mechanism that I'm either going to be like really nice and sweet and loving and soft to disarm my abusers, or what's more likely is I'm going to develop this sense of self that's like, I'm powerful, don't mess with me, stay away from me. I'm going to safeguard that. I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to become this like aggressive, sort of angry individual. And then what happens is it grows and it grows and it just continues and it continues and it builds in momentum. And then all of a sudden we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and it's like this strong thing. It's who we are. That's my personality. I love it when people say, I don't care if I offend somebody because that's just who I am. And I'm not gonna guess what? It's not who you are. That's not who you are. That's what you're showing the world to safeguard who you really are. And so you go about life in this. We go through life and things happen and we can deal with it because we have this buffer and this sort of like this distance between our true self and the world. Now, an extreme example are people that have drug and alcohol abuse, because they need to create a really strong barrier between the world and them. It's drug abuse, and they numb out and they check out. Nobody can relate to them in their opinion. They have all these things they're dealing with. Drugs and alcohol are a great way to numb out and sort of like block what the world, needs to see about you, because, even the problem with drugs and alcohol is that eventually it takes you over. And you don't even know who you are anymore. So, that's a common one. Another one is like people that have sexual trauma from a young age. They can often do things that keep them away from others. They disconnect, they unplug. Some people have eating disorders. Some people have all kinds of behaviors that kind of pushes people away from them. Pushes people away. I had a kid that I was working with one time who's extremely overweight. And this doesn't go for anybody that's overweight necessarily. It's just this one particular case. And this kid was very overweight, but nobody in his family was. It wasn't like a genetic thing or like a lifestyle thing. Like he was eating, what the family ate, and it was pretty healthy, normal sort of diet. But he was trying to create a barrier with his food that was blocking him from people abusing him, because he was sexually assaulted multiple times as a young kid. So we had this like weight thing that would he thought it would get a subconscious. He thought it would kind of block him from people. He can kind of like insulate himself. We see this with like tons of plastic surgery sometimes. Again, not everybody, I'm just kind of talking about examples. Not everybody's this way that does these things. People that are overweight don't have this, all of them, obviously, right? That would be absurd to think that this is like a norm for everybody, but I'm just talking about certain examples to help you guys understand. So people that do a ton of plastic surgery, I'm not talking about normal, yeah, from LA, so normal. I apologize to the rest of the world that doesn't understand LA's plastic surgery, okay, but in LA, there's a lot of people that do plastic surgery. Some people do it like excessively. And what that is, it's just a barrier between who they really are as people and what they want the world to see. And if you see somebody that's like way too much plastic surgery, you go, oh, well, what's up with that person? They're just crazy, right? And so then they distracted you. It worked. They distracted you. You don't really see who they are. You can't see who they are. They're not allowing you because you're using your eyes to tell. And then you talk to them, those people, and you say, hey, how's it going? What's up with you? And they're just like superficial, and they have a facade, and they're blocking, right? Again, this is a stupid example, right? But I'm from LA, so might as well throw that in there. So, so there's all these ways that people develop over time on how to, show the world what they want the world to see. And it's not really who they are, and that causes, like I mentioned, it causes discontent. And there's an unplugging of self from the authentic, true person that they are. And if you're unplugged from yourself, there's really no way that you can actually feel authentic happiness and contentment. It's just not possible. You're blunted to this. So, at Rythmia, we have all these things. We have plant medicine, we have hydrocolonic cleanses, we have massage, we have body work, we have classes, we have therapy sessions. We have like all this stuff we're doing, and the goal of it all is to get you to like connect with who you are as an individual. But the fear of most people is that this is something they don't want to do because they're scared. Because if you're plugged into yourself, you have to be real with yourself. And if you're real with yourself, do you like who you are? Well, what the plant medicine does is it shows you that you're an amazing person. You have so many skills and talents and abilities, and you're very unique as a person. I always like to say in healthcare, I was taught the opposite of this, but what I like to say is that every single individual is unique. Every single individual has their own set of circumstances that have led them to where they're at. And you have to address each person individually. And what happens in healthcare is they categorize you. You're an addict. You have to do this. You have bipolar, you have to do this. You have a heart condition, you have to do this. And they just categorize you because that's a way to like organize healthcare and mental health services. And I get it. I'm not knocking it. I mean, it's just, there's so many people with issues that go on in the world that you kind of have to try to deal with it as a society, and society doesn't know how to do it. Funds are limited. There's all kinds of political stuff going on. Grants and all that. It's just crazy, right? So, but the bottom line is this: you're unique. You have your own set of circumstances that led you where you're at. So who's better able to address that than you? You're the one, not the healthcare system. They can maybe point you in the right direction if they're, if they're like, I guess, ethical. I tried to do that when I was in LA. I tried to point people in the right direction, but it wasn't easy because they were fighting against all these labels and all these things that were categorizing them. I worked in drug and alcohol abuse for a very long time, many years. I'm considered a drug and alcohol expert. And what I loved about working with people that have a so-called addiction is that they were so beat down by the system that they didn't even know who they were anymore. And they started to take on these labels, right? I'm an addict. I'm a screwed up individual. I have character flaws. I have to be in therapy the rest of my life. And you know what? Some people do if they've gone past a certain point, but most people don't. Most people just need to heal themselves and connect with themselves and really figure out who they are as individuals. So do you really want to do this work? I know you do, because it brings great freedom. And you have trust in yourself. And you can really succeed and excel in life and thrive. That's the goal. So at Rythmia, that's what we're trying to do. It's hard work. It's actually hard work. I think you can handle a week of hard work. I really do. Because during that week of hard work, there's actually many moments of peace and joy and elation and success. There's moments of upsetness and sadness and fear and guilt and shame and anger. There's moments of that too. But if you want to get to the bottom of it, you want to really fix who you are as an individual, you got to go through it. Every week I talk to guests that come, I really focus on the ones that are struggling the most, and I do sessions with them, and they're telling me like, I'm so upset right now. I'm so sad and angry and tired, and I'm hungry, and I feel worse than I did when I came. I say, yeah, welcome to what it costs to be healed. That's what it costs. You've been through a lifetime of discontent. You've been through a lifetime of pushing away issues and blocking them because you had to survive in those moments. That's what we all do. You had to survive. There wasn't time to feel those emotions in that moment because it was a traumatic experience. But now you're dealing with it. So somebody comes to my office and tells me that they're like really angry or really upset or they feel like leaving. I tell them, good. That's exactly where you need to be, because that's how this works. It gets you to a place of vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is very interesting, especially men out there. We're told if you're vulnerable, you're weak. That's what we're told. Even if it wasn't directly said, it's what's implied. And I have news for everybody. Vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is strength. And you can use vulnerability in a healthy way to really connect to yourself and also to others. When I was 5 years old, vulnerability meant getting my ass kicked, is what that meant. And I don't like that. And vulnerability meant being scared. And I don't like that either. And vulnerability meant uncertainty and unpredictability. And I didn't like that either. But I'm not 5 anymore. I'm 50 years old. I have control over my environment. I can make decisions for myself. And I can decide, you know what? If I make myself vulnerable as a person to feel things and really understand who I am, what that means is that I can actually connect and I can actually understand myself and I can really understand other people. And if somebody's abusive, I'm assertive and I can tell them, please don't do that. That's not appropriate. And I can leave, or I can tell them to leave. And I'm not 5 anymore. So let's not let 5-year-old politics dictate the politics of an adult. Let's not do that. I had a person who was here recently who said she felt worse here than she did in the last 10 years. I said, well, tell me about the last 10 years. Well, I was on antidepressants. I was numb. I was unhappy in my life. I had a couple suicide attempts, or at least thoughts about it. And my family was concerned about me. I said, so what's going on for you now? I'm really seeing who I've become. And it's drumming up all these emotions that I had never really processed. And it's helping me like figure out like what's going on with my life and having this new clarity. So I said, so in other words, you're actually healing yourself. Healing is work. It's not passive. In the West, we want things to be happening like this, boom, in the instant. And guess what? This is the quickest thing to do that, because in plant medicine, it shows you who you become. It gets you to that point super fast. And if you're in the jungle doing this, there's no context, there's no integration, there's no sort of like supportive group around you. And so what happens is you just get confused and you don't understand what's going on. And I hear this about a lot of places out there. There's some places that are really good out in the jungle. I can count them on one hand, but most of them are throwing you to the wolves and just hoping for the best. And most people come back confused and upset more than they were before. At Rythmia, we have a ton of staff. We have a ton of classes. We have a plant integration class every single day. We also do a closing group. We also have sessions. We have all kinds of instructional stuff. And there's all these staff that can sit down with you and process what's going on. I do it all day. I probably meet with 10 to 15 guests a day. And I help them understand the context of what's happening. Because not only do I have the scientific background about what's happening with plant medicine, I also have the emotional, psychological, and spiritual background to deal with it. So come to Rythmia, check out what we're doing, see who you've become. The next 2 Facebook Lives, I'm going to talk about the next 2 intentions, which we have, which are Reunite Me with My Soul, is next week. After that, I'm going to talk about Heal Your Heart. And those are the ways you can get your miracle. And you can be a new, plugged in, super happy, connected person, moving forward in life with a set of tools that are real, that don't unplug you from yourself. All right, you guys, Pura Vida. Rythmia Nation, thanks for watching. See you next Monday. Pura vida.